Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Tonight on the Evan Miller Report, we have breaking news out of Yemen where militants from Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula have seized an airport in southern Yemen. We have the developing details on tonight's program. A man has returned from Syria, has planned to kill U.S. soldiers. We'll tell you where he wanted to kill our men here in the United States on tonight's program. In the UK tonight, the leaders of the 5 challenger parties engaged in some heated exchanges in tonight's UK Prime Minister's debates. We have a full report on that tonight. And breaking news in California as SB 277 is now stalled in Sacramento. We got a full report with Katie Grimes of the California Flash Report. All those stories and more, plus he's back, ladies and gentlemen. The one, the only, here's Corey Evans.
Finally, back to the day job, yes. Aaron Hernandez's conviction, as it turns out, is only just the beginning of his legal woes. Pardon me for going into Aaron Hernandez's file, but it's one of those things. Anyway, in business, Party City is living it up on Wall Street. Californians want to legalize prostitution, well, some of them do, and it's made its way into lawsuits across America. Shameful. And thankfully, Lady Antebellum was able to keep their cool after a heated morning. That's all coming up in your conservative news source. The Evan Miller Report starts now.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Public Press Radio. Here now, Jason Miller.
And a very good evening on this Thursday, April the 16th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller, and as I stated in the teaser, welcome back to Corey Evan. Good to have you back, man. We know every once in a while we need to take a vacation in this business, but we certainly hope Corey enjoyed his time off.
Yeah, certainly did. I needed those 3 days, but it is good to be back reporting on those things that need to be reported on. The stuff
Absolutely.
That the media doesn't, and even go into detail what they've already talked about.
Absolutely. Sometimes we need to go over what the media talks about. Certainly not everything they talk about. But welcome to the Evan Miller Report tonight. As I stated, I'm Jason Miller. Corey Evan is here tonight as well from our Los Angeles Bureau. He'll be back a couple of minutes with the national news and those latest on that unemployment numbers in the business news tonight. And, of course, we have Katie Grimes tonight of California Flash Report join us tonight. She's going to be talking about 2 stories with us tonight. One about Jerry Brown's cake speech when it comes to the California government drought, as we like to call it here on the program, and breaking news in the vaccination debate as SB 277 is now stalled in Sacramento. We'll get the latest from her on that. But first, ladies and gentlemen, we do start off with some breaking news tonight. We start off in Yemen tonight, where militants from Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula have now seized an airport in southern Yemen, according to officials. Troops guarding the site in the major port city of Morakla, Hartwith province, have fled, they said. AQAP has exploited the chaos gripping the country, overrunning Mekelle earlier this month and freeing inmates from a prison. The Saudi-led coalition, which has been bombing Shi'a Houthi rebels, have been advancing across the country. The Houthis swept into the capital Sana'a, of course, last September, eventually forcing President Arub Mashur Hadi to flee abroad. But AQAP fighters have also reportedly took control of a seaport and an oil terminal in southern Yemen. As the coalition strikes continue against the Houthis, Yemen's Vice President Khalid Bathi said he did not want a Saudi-led ground offensive in his country. With the raids failing to stop the rebels, there has been speculation a ground campaign could be lodged by Saudi Arabia. But Mr. Bach said, quote, "We are still hoping that nothing will happen, and we are not expanding the war, but we are trying to stop the war." Earlier, it was announced the UN Special Envoy to Yemen, Jalmar Bahar, has stepped down from his post. The UN said it would name a successor in due course and spare no efforts to relaunch the peace process. The Moroccan diplomat is believed to have come under pressure to resign from Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states after he failed to get the warring Yemeni factions to attend peace talks. Stay with the Evan Miller Report for the latest on Yemen. We'll bring you more as this story continues to develop. Meanwhile, other news in the Middle East tonight, where a man who had traveled to Syria to fight with an al-Qaeda affiliate has been charged over alleged plans to carry out a terror attack on the U.S. military. Adran Sharik Mohammed, 23, allegedly gained training with the al-Nusra Front and was instructed by a radical cleric to carry out an attack in the U.S. He is accused of telling another man he wanted to kill American soldiers execution style at a military base. He faces charges of material support of terrorism and making false statements. Identifying and neutralizing the threat posed by foreign terrorist fighters who return to the U.S. is one of the National Security Division's highest priorities, said Assistant Attorney General John Carlin in a statement. It is the latest example of U.S. officials bringing charges against those allegedly helping the likes of Daesh or Islamic State and other militant groups. Mr. Mohammed, we won't call him a Mr., we'll just call him Mohammed. He doesn't have the right to be called Mr., at least not by this broadcast. Back to the story. Mohammed from Ohio left the U.S. in April 2014, shortly after becoming a naturalized citizen, traveling to Syria after flight to Istanbul, according to prosecutors. His brother Aiden had been killed while fighting with the group in Syria. Mohammed allegedly told two unnamed people when he returned to the U.S. in June 2014 he wanted to attack a military base or prison, killing 3 or 4 people execution style. All right, moving over to Italy tonight, where Italian police say they have arrested 15 Muslim migrants after they allegedly threw 12 Christian people overboard following a row on a boat heading to Italy. The Christian migrants, said to be from Ghana and Nigeria, are all feared dead. In a separate incident, more than 40 people drowned after another migrant boat sank between Libya and Italy. Almost 10,000 migrants trying to cross the Mediterranean have been rescued in recent days. Italy has called for more help from the EU to handle the crisis. More than 500 people from Africa and the Middle East have died making the perilous crossing since the start of the year. Earlier this week, 400 people were believed to have drowned when their boat capsized. The 15 Muslim migrants involved in the row with the Christians were arrested in the Sicilian city of Palermo and charged with multiple aggravated murder motivated by religious hate. The suspects, who are from Ivory Coast, Seychelles, Magal, and Guinea, were among the 105 migrants traveling in an inflatable boat that left Libya on Tuesday. Eyewitnesses told People the altercation resulted in the Christians being thrown overboard and that some of the survivors had formed human chains to avoid a similar fate. Also today, the Italian Navy plunked 4 survivors, a Ghanaian, 2 Nigerians, and a man from Nigeria from the sea. They said their inflatable boat had sunk after leaving Libya with 45 people on board. Now to Russia, where Russia's President Vladimir Putin says Ukraine's government is cutting off defiant rebel-held areas of eastern Ukraine through an economic blockade. He was addressing a huge Russian audience in a live televised phone-in. He also insisted there are no Russian troops in Ukraine. Moscow denies Western charges they are directly arming and reinforcing the rebels. Later he said those who had ordered the murder of Boris Nestovsky, one of his leading critics, might never be found. Mr. Novkovsky, of course, a prominent opposition politician, was shot back on February the 27th of this year near the Kremlin. 5 suspects, all of them Chechens, are in custody. Mr. Putin condemned the murder as disgraceful. All right, now time for UK election politics, as we always carry it here on the Evan Miller Report. And earlier today on the SHR Media Network, we carried the full UK 5 Challenger debate today here on that network. And it got fiery. The leaders of the 5 challenger parties engaged in some heated exchanges as they fought to present their vision for Britain in a televised debate. With coalition leaders David Cameron, the Conservative Prime Minister, and Nick Clegg of the Lib Dem Party absent, Labour's Ed Miliband was the target of many of the attacks at and from other parties at Westminster Central Hall. And as the ITV's Chris Shipp reports, Nicola Sturgeon of the SNPs and Nigel Farage both took aim at the would-be Prime Minister. Here's Chris's report.
The second television debate of this election, but from the leaders arriving here tonight, a noticeable difference. No David Cameron, no Nick Clegg. So it was 5 opposition leaders who assembled for the 90-minute pitch for your vote. First question, like much of this election campaign, on the deficit.
I have to say, this talk of austerity from you and all the others, please, please, please can we remember this year we are borrowing £90 billion more, and I haven't heard from you, Ed, a single cut that you would make. Not one.
No, that's wrong, Nigel.
Well, tell me.
Nigel hasn't denied that he wants to double the spending cuts next year. Now, he's got these fantasy figures that somehow getting out of Europe is going to save all this money when it's a disaster for jobs in our country. The reality is that for the NHS and education, Nigel, your plans are dangerous.
I want to get rid of the Tories on May the 7th, and I think it's a disgrace that David Cameron's not here tonight to defend his record. But I want to see... to see the Tories replaced with something better.
Let's not pretend there's no difference between me and David Cameron. You know, Nicola, there's a huge difference between me and David Cameron.
Well, you may not have heard. I don't say there's no difference between Ed Miliband and David Cameron. I say there's not a big enough difference between Ed Miliband and David Cameron. That's the thing.
Not being here meant David Cameron couldn't defend his big manifesto pledge on rights to buy, allowing housing association tenants to purchase their homes. And the leaders who were here didn't defend it for him.
We would not go ahead with this policy. It is one of the worst policies that you can think of. If you're thinking about reducing homelessness, this will increase levels of homelessness, and that's just not on.
Okay. We really need to turn this around and turn homes into somewhere that's secure, affordable, that you're not 6 months and you'll throw it out and you have to look for a new place.
And then Nigel Farage did that thing he has done before and stuck his neck out.
There just seems to be a total lack of comprehension on this panel, and indeed amongst this audience, which is a remarkable audience even by the left-wing standards of the BBC. I mean, this lot's pretty left-wing.
Hang on a second.
The real audience are sitting at home, actually. You cannot discuss...
hang on.
Let him have
his say.
No, that's fine.
Go on.
Remarkable. We are talking about a market, folks. And I just wonder, I'm curious, could I get any recognition from any of you that the demand side of this equation is that a rapidly rising population due to open-door immigration started by Ed Miliband's Labour Party in the late 1990s has directly contributed towards the housing crisis?
We have a housing shortage across this country. But you know what, Nigel Farage? It's not caused by immigrants. In your world, every problem is caused by immigrants.
And immigration then continued to fan the flames on stage.
My question to you, if you become Prime Minister, will you run a national health service, or will you continue it to be an international health service?
Look, there are rules in place and they've got to be enforced. But Nigel, the thing you've got to answer is this, because people at home need to know this. You don't want the National Health Service. You want a private insurance system of healthcare.
UKIP believes in the National Health Service, free at the point of delivery. It was you that privatised a large chunk of the health service. And you're lying, and you're lying.
Ed,
Millions of people, and you keep on doing it. And lying won't win you the election.
You made the point.
I think it was probably my turn. You're comfortable with a 5% private profit for private companies operating in the NHS.
All right.
We should have 0% profit
I want to come back
in the
on this.
NHS.
And this is the last.
And what of the issue of which party or parties will form the next government?
We want to bring an end to this Tory government with its ideological-driven cuts, and we can work together, as progressives here on this stage can work together in order to achieve that.
What I'm saying is I can help Labour be bolder. Don't turn your back on that, Ed, and let David Cameron back into Downing Street.
You want to gamble on getting rid of a Tory government? I can guarantee that we get rid of a Tory government if you vote Labour in this election.
The question tonight then, does David Cameron regret not coming? And how much will Nick Clegg kick himself that he couldn't? Chris Shipp, ITV News, Westminster.
And thank you, Chris Shipp, for that report on the UK Prime Minister's elections debates tonight. One more note before we wrap up the elections news out of the UK tonight. Media tycoon Richard Desmond has donated £1 million to the UKIP party in a move to help the party's drive for seats in the upcoming election. The Express newspaper's owner has already donated £300,000 to the party last year and called his latest edition a fanfare for the common man. Speaking to the Daily Express, Desmond said, quote, "I firmly believe in UKIP. It's a party for good, ordinary British people. It's not run by elitists. They are struggling to have a voice. They do not have a massive party machine or highly paid public relations people," end quote. He also said that the party was not perfect and did not pretend to be, but said that what they believe is the best interest for the British people. Nigel Farage said the money would make a big difference, particularly in their online presence, and would allow them to reach bigger and bigger audiences. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the latest on your international news for the moment. We're going to go ahead, take a short break. When we come back, we will have Katie Grimes tonight from the California Flash Report. She'll be with us to talk about Jerry Brown's latest debacle on the California droughts. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackhead.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
There are more than 3 million children in America's child protective and justice systems. Kids who've been abused, neglected, or traumatized. Kids who have begun to act out. The worst situations you can imagine. They've been told repeatedly they're worthless, messed up, or written off completely as a lost cause. For their safety and others, some of these children have to be removed from their homes, separated from their families. They're at the mercy of an overwhelmed system. Every 38 minutes, another troubled child is referred to youth villages Youth Villages believes that no child is a lost cause, not a single one, because a stable, loving family can help any child succeed. And we have an 80% overall success rate that proves doing whatever it takes for children is the only thing that works. If you agree, find out how you can help at youthvillages.org.
And welcome back to the Evan Miller Report. I'm Jason Miller. Folks, I'd like to apologize. We were supposed to have Katie Grimes from the California Flash Report on our program tonight. Apparently, ladies and gentlemen, she has not called in. We have tried to make an attempt to call her, and we have been unable to reach her. So, unfortunately, Katie Grimes will not be joining us tonight. We're sorry to hear that. Hopefully, we can reschedule in the future for her to come on the program. I will be back in a couple minutes, and we'll cover the breaking news, obviously, out of California today regarding...
I'm guessing Katie has been swamped with immunization supporters.
I'm not sure what it was, Corey, but anyhow, I will give folks an update on the SB 277 bill here in California in just a few moments. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and send it over to my co-host, Corey Evan, up in Los Angeles. He has some of the day's other news that is going on across the nation today. Corey?
Thank you very much, Jay. A Long Island cardiologist had the office of another doctor torched, then hired someone who turned out to be an undercover police officer in a failed attempt to have the doctor hurt or killed, authorities said to the Christian Science Monitor. Dr. Anthony J. Macheto allegedly used drugs, guns, and blank prescriptions as currency while trying to have the other doctor harmed amid a professional dispute, investigators said Wednesday. Macheto first allegedly hired two men to set a fire to the man's office. It happened beneath a sprinkler and damage was minimal, prosecutors said. Quote, he was willing to pay $5,000 to have him beaten and put in the hospital for a couple of months and pay $20,000 to have him killed, Nassau County Assistant District Attorney Ann Donnelly said of Macheto's intentions. He wanted to put him out of business so he could get his business, unquote. Acting District Attorney Madeline Singas said luckily for this victim, Macheto was stopped. Investigators who went to Macheto's home in Sense Point on Long Island's Gold Coast, one of the nation's wealthiest areas, found a weapons cache in a secret room that was accessed through a motorized bookshelf, they said. The weapons, which included dozens of knives, guns, and a hand grenade, were displayed at a news conference Wednesday. Possible charges for the stash have not yet been announced. The investigation into Macheto started with the purchase of oxycodone pills, heroin, and two fully loaded assault weapons. Oh dear, Piers Morgan's going to have a field day with this. Prosecutors said Macheto had paid the undercover officer $500 to perform a hit before getting arrested. He was caught on undercover video discussing the alleged plot. Macheto pled not guilty to conspiracy and other charges at his arraignment Wednesday. He left court after posting a $2 million bond and declined to comment. He's due back in court on April 17th. His attorney, Randy Zellin, said the alleged victim was Macheto's former partner. Dear, former partnership gone awry. Don't like that when that happens. Any rate, he was identified in court as Martin Handler. 2 orders of protection were issued, one for Handler and one for his wife, that bar Macheto from contacting them, a prosecutor said. Handler did not immediately return a message seeking comment. Outside the courthouse, Zellin said his client would be defending himself vigorously. When's the last time he heard that? Any rate, he declined to specify the nature of the dispute, but said it stemmed from what he described as a business divorce between Macheto and Handler. 2 other defendants are charged in the case, accused of their involvement in the office fire, which occurred before the undercover investigation began. They, along with Macheto, the Drug Enforcement Administration also was involved in the investigation, which began in December. Even after he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole, former New England Patriots star tight end Aaron Hernandez is nowhere near done with legal troubles. He still faces double murder charges in Boston, as well as civil lawsuits over the killings and a lawsuit in Florida from a former friend who said he was shot in the face and left for dead after arguing with Hernandez. A jury on Wednesday found Hernandez guilty of the June 2013 killing of Odin Lloyd, who was dating the sister of Hernandez's fiancée. Lloyd was killed, shot 6 times in a deserted industrial park less than a mile from Hernandez's home, for reasons his lawyer acknowledged his client witnessed the crime, but insisted he did not do it. Really, Matt? When's the last time you've heard that, Jay?
One too many times.
Yep, that was the straw that broke that camel's back. And I'm sure we'll see the camel spitting about this one for days to come. A Detroit police officer says there hadn't been a thorough search of a basement before a missing boy was found there during an 11-day hunt last summer, according to the AP. Lori Dillon resumed her testimony Thursday in a criminal case against Charlie Boffel's father and stepmother. A judge must decide whether they'll go to trial on torture and child abuse charges. Under cross-examination, Dillon says she wasn't surprised that Charlie wasn't found in his basement days earlier based on the conditions. She says there hadn't been a no-stone-unturned search there. Charlie's father, also named Charlie Bothell, and Monique Dillard Bothell deny the charges and insist they didn't know the boy was in the basement. Prosecutors say he was struck with a plastic pipe, forced to perform rigorous workouts, and given a limited diet. Yuck, to say the least. And a New Hampshire woman and her husband have both been arrested and charged more than a decade after they fled to Costa Rica with their daughter previous marriage and a custody battle. Scott Kelly was arrested Wednesday at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport as he arrived from Costa Rica with his stepdaughter, now 19, U.S. Marshals Service said. Kelly is charged with custodial interference. His wife, Genevieve Kelly, faces trial next month on the same charge after prosecutors say she fled the country in 2004 with her then 8-year-old daughter in defiance of a court order. Genevieve turned herself in earlier this year and is free on bail ahead of her trial. Genevieve's daughter and Scott Kelly's stepdaughter, Mary Nunez, was with him Wednesday, but there were no warrants for her arrest, and she was released, said Jim Joyner, supervisor of the U.S. Marshals Southeast Regional Fugitive Task Force. Scott Kelly's arrest was set in motion Monday when he and Nunez visited the U.S. Department of State office in Costa Rica to get travel documents to return to the U.S. This, according to Deputy Marshal Jamie Berry and New Hampshire case manager for the Kelly case. Interpol alerts signaled that Scott Kelly was wanted and Nunez was listed as missing. Federal marshals said they were alerted to the flight arrangements and intercepted them when they landed. Berry would not disclose Nunez's destination, citing privacy concerns. But I'm certain that the AP, which brought us this story, will bring us further details on this interesting little case, and I'll bring them to you as soon as they do. There's the closing bell. That must mean one thing, the business report. And on Wall Street, the Dow lost 6 points at 18,105, the Nasdaq lost 3 points at 50,07, and the S&P 500 lost a very hearty 1.5 at 2104. Now that was one of those meh sort of days. Anyway,
You've been watching too many goat movies on your vacation, haven't you?
Too many what movies?
Too many goat movies.
Ah, yes. Not the least of which is Babe. Anyway.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, he's into his newfound hobby. He wants to milk goats. I don't know
yes.
his obsession with that. But let's get on with this.
My fiancé instilled that in me. But at any rate, the number of people who filed for unemployment assistance in the U.S. last week rose more than expected, dampening optimism over the strength of the labor market, official data showed today. In a report, the U.S. Department of Labor said the number of individuals filing for initial jobless benefits in the week ending April 11th increased by 12,000 to a seasonally adjusted 294,000 from the previous week's total of 282,000. Analysts had expected initial jobless claims to fall by 2,000 last week. Continuing jobless claims in the week ended April 4th 2.268 million, from 2.308 million in the preceding week. Analysts had expected continuing claims to rise to 2.3 million. The 4-week moving average was 282 and 750, an increase of 250 from the previous total of 282 and 500. The monthly average is seen as a more accurate gauge of labor trends because it reduces volatility in the week-to-week data. I'm not surprised to hear that. Here in my home base, here in Hemet, where I broadcast from, there was a Coco's restaurant, and Jay, I'm sure you've heard this. They closed almost half of their locations after a Texas-based management firm took over Catalina Restaurant Group, which owned Caro's and Coco's. So I'm sure a lot of them are former waitresses and line cooks. Very unfortunate situation for them.
And Caro's used to be part of that chain as well. Used to have one down here in San Diego County. That closed some time ago. So.
Yeah, I think that one in Escon. I used to walk by there all the time, and I was quite saddened when I saw it close because it was actually a pretty good place. But never mind. We got to get back to the business news here.
It's making me hungry.
Yes. But will you be hungry for peanuts and pretzels? Because even though the seats won't be flying on Southwest's planes until 2016, once they do, customers on those planes will get close to an inch of extra. This according to USA Today. Southwest claims that the 17.8-inch width will give it the widest 737 seat of any U.S. airline, according to Bloomberg. Southwest, which flies only 737s, operates the world's biggest fleet of them. Bloomberg notes Southwest's new quote, compares with 17.1 inches on Southwest Now, 7 Alaska, and as much as 17.3 on some United Airlines 737s in economy, according to the SeatGuru.com website. Southwest will be the first carrier to put on its planes, starting with new Boeing 737-800s that will begin arriving next year. And they'll also add the seats to its new Boeing 737 MAX jets, which are due to begin arriving in 2017. Southwest that variant. One thing that won't change is seat pitch, or the measure of the distance from the back of the seat next. That will remain about 32 inches, according to Bloomberg. The airline unveiled the seat for its all 737 fleet on Tuesday at the Aircraft Interior Expo in Hamburg, Germany. Southwest said it partnered with BE Aerospace to design the seat. Interesting design, that, adding an extra little inch of width. I'm sure that some folks out there will appreciate it. And you know who you are, so I won't say who you are. And Party City Holdings shares rose as much as 22.6% in their debut today, valuing the largest U.S. party goods retailer at about $2.4 billion. You know, they're partying it up. Shares of the company, backed by buyout firm Thomas H. Lee Partners, opened at $20 and $50, high of $20.84 on the New York Stock Exchange in early trading. Party City sold all 21.9 million shares in the IPO at $17 each at the higher end of the expected range, raising about $372 million. The company has 900 party superstores in the U.S. and Canada that sell Halloween costumes, party supplies, paper and plastic tableware, balloons and gifts, and so on. Goldman Sachs and BofA Merrill Lynch were the lead underwriters for the offering. It's a shame they sold them all already, because I'd actually like to get my hands on some of that stock. Am I right or am I right, Jay?
Oh, you're certainly right there, Corey. Certainly right. All right, what else you got?
Right, that's all I've got for business. What do you got in DC news and all that sort of stuff?
All right, thank you very much on that, Corey. And we do have some breaking news. As for SB 277, ladies and gentlemen, that controversial bill to require vaccinations for all California school children has now ran into trouble. Late yesterday, when its author delayed a key Senate committee vote after enraged parents opposed to the legislation demanded lawmakers answer a central question. Don't all kids, whether they are vaccinated or not, have a right to public education? With bill co-author Senator Richard Pan facing similar questions from fellow committee members, the Sacramento Democrat put the brakes on a scheduled floor vote in the Senate Education Committee, promising to return with answers in a week for another hearing. The unexpected retreat seems a promising turn of events for hundreds of opponents who again showed up in Sacramento to challenge lawmakers and insist the bill would deprive them of their right to choose not to vaccinate their children. It showed a spokeswoman for the California Coalition for Health Choice, a group of parents and others who are fighting the bills, Jean Louise Keys, said it shows that the legislature realizes it's a bad bill. They started looking closely at this bill and realized it's not what Senator Pan wants people to believe. It essentially will deny children the right to access public education, and there are no answers in that current bill to address that. Senate Bill 277, which passed its first key test a week ago in the Senate Health Committee, needs 5 votes to proceed out of the Senate Education Committee, and then must pass through the Senate Judiciary Committee before heading to the Assembly and then to Governor Jerry Brown's desk. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for putting in your emails, your telephone calls, your faxes into the state capitol as well, and for showing up in Sacramento, too, on delaying this vote. Sometimes delaying a vote is better than trying to cancel out a vote, because when you try to cancel something out, then the Sacramento people get kind of panicky, and then they decide to pass it anyway, because they get scared, as some politicians tend to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much for doing what you need to do for that. We're going to have an update, I hope, next week. We're going to see if we can get Assembly Devon Mathis to come back on the program and hopefully see if we can get this bill defeated once and for all. Because as long as it gets delayed, that gives us more time in trying to get the bill defeated completely. All right, folks, moving on to the D.C. news now. And we start off in Virginia tonight, where most people know that using a password like 12345 or a password to protect their email or Facebook account is a ridiculously terrible idea. But apparently no one mentioned that to a company in charge of building Virginia's election machines. According to a study by the Virginia Information Technology Agency and reported in the UK's Guardian newspaper, the AVS VIN voting machines used in 3 presidential elections were protected by such astonishingly simple passwords as a 6-year-old could figure them out. The report found that the wireless network between the machines, which was in use between 2002 and 2014, was protected by such passwords such as ABCDE and admin. If someone was able to get those machines via a wireless connection, they theoretically could have controlled the outcome to major elections from the relative comfort of the parking lot of the voting location. According to the report, cracking the passwords to the voting machines took minimal effort using freely available tool sets. That means that anyone with a hint of know-how could have easily broken into those machines. Jeremy Epstein of Princeton University Center for Information Technology wrote in a post about the voting machines, quote, "If no Virginia elections were ever hacked and we have no way of knowing if it happened, it's because no one with even a modicum of skill tried." It wasn't just the machine's passwords that were lacking, though. They were also running a version of Windows XP Embedded 2002 and never had been patched or otherwise updated. In fact, the machines were found to still have a vulnerability that was fixed back in 2004. According to the Guardian newspaper, it says the machines were used in no less than 24 elections in Virginia over the years. They were also in use in the states of Mississippi and Pennsylvania, but those states eventually stopped using them. I wonder why. I wonder why, ladies and gentlemen.
Same here, Jay.
Bad news in Virginia, and we wondered where voter fraud was going to come out. Well, California for one. Virginia, well, maybe. We can't confirm
And you thought it was
deny.
the Republicans that were stealing the election.
Yeah.
To
Well,
steal
we
a quote
can't
from Glenn
confirm or
Beck.
deny those allegations, whether Virginia had voter fraud or not. So we're just
Right, but as soon as articles come in confirming that, we will bring them to you.
Oh, you bet your sorry game show newsman in on that.
I heard that.
Yes, you did. Moving on in D.C. news tonight, Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren at John Kerry's Secretary of State confirmation. Oh, excuse me. I'm reading. See, ladies and gentlemen, I get into a story and then I get distracted and I read the wrong text in the story. Hillary Clinton has had nothing but kind words for Senator Elizabeth Warren. Ooh, those two gang comfy. The former Secretary of State and 2016 Democratic presidential candidate praised the progressive Massachusetts senator in a piece in Time magazine's annual 100 Most Influential People in the World issue, which I currently don't buy, Corey Evan. Thanks for asking. It was always going to take a special kind of leader to pick up Ted Kennedy's mantle as senior senator from Massachusetts, Clinton said in the April 16th issue. She continued saying, Elizabeth Warren never lets us forget the work of taming Wall Street's irresponsible risk-taking and reforming our financial system is far from finished. Warren never hesitates to hold powerful people's feet to the fire. Clinton continues to write, bankers, lobbyists, senior government officials, and yes, even presidential aspirants. Elizabeth, I will not continue in any of the comments that she said, but I will go ahead and post the story up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report, and just conclude in saying that some progressives believe that Elizabeth Warren could and should challenge Clinton for the 2016 Democratic nomination, and as the editor-in-chief of Pundit Press has said many a times on his broadcast and on this very broadcast, she could very well be a dark horse candidate in the upcoming presidential elections next year. Speak of presidential elections, in an interview that aired on CNBC Wednesday, outgoing Senator Minority Leader Harry Reid was asked to assess the field of current and potential candidates for the 2016 Republican presidential nomination. The 75-year-old Nevada Democrat said, quote, I think they're all losers. On Thursday, one of those losers, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, responded by taking the high road. Well, sort of. The worst thing we can do is talk about, Rubio said on Fox and Friends. That's what he wants. The first-term senator lamented the current state of partisan debate in Washington and saying, quote, there used to be a line of civility in American politics. It's particularly problematic on the left. They never argue with you about ideas. Their instant reaction is to attack you personally. I'm not saying people on the right don't do it. It happens, but it's so much more common on the left. On Wednesday, Rubio made headlines for his comments on gay marriage, saying he would attend the wedding of a same-sex couple despite his personal belief that a marriage should be between a man and a woman. All right, folks, here's one of those oddball stories, and this comes out of D.C., out of all places. The Senate Finance Committee erupted in giggles on Thursday when Senator Pat Roberts' phone went off during a hearing on U.S. tariff policy. But it's not the phone call that was weird. What was weird was the ringtone that he had. It was apparently from one Walt Disney movie. We'll let you guess by hearing this clip from the Senate Finance Committee.
I would say that we're also deeply concerned about recent discussions in this space where individual countries now may not only have the concern about cultivation but also about the feed. And we will be expressing our objection to that approach as well. So we're going to be very aggressive on that issue as well as on the geographic preference issue.
Ah, come on. Just let it go, Mr. Sorry about that.
And let it go, he certainly did, ladies and gentlemen. That ringtone going off, of course, folks know that nearly 2 years after Disney premiered what it would quickly become the highest grossing film in animation history, the Frozen phenomenon apparently still lives on, fueled in large part by the movie's theme song, Let It Go. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Horticulture Secretary Tom Vizslik being told by the likes of Pat Roberts after that ringtone getting off, classic words, just let it go, Mr. Secretary, just let it go. And Corey Evan, not often the entertainment report mixes in with the DC news, so quite funny.
Yeah, I leave for 3 days and I get this when I come back. That's actually pretty awesome.
See, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes in this business, we just like to have a little fun. Today, that was my little piece of fun today. I enjoyed that. And
it may not be Friday yet, but it's close enough.
Oh, well, it's Thursday, the day before Friday. We can just say it's Friday already. All right, folks, on that note, and I've been waiting to say this all week, it's now time for Lawsuits Across America.
And now it's time for Lawsuits Across America. The cases are real. All rise for the Honorable Corey Evans.
Thank you as always, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated and come to order. Lawsuits Across America is back in session. First item on the docket has to do with a failed $1.3 billion iPad program. Apple, along with media company Pearson, may be facing a new legal challenge from a surprising source, the LA Unified School District. This according to Fortune. The dispute stems from the $1.3 billion program the school district launched in 2013 to supply every student and faculty member an Apple iPad loaded with Pearson software. The program almost instantly flopped, with teachers reporting software bugs, a lack of content, and difficulties using the tech with students learning English as a foreign language. The LA Times now reports the school district is refusing to pay for more Pearson's content, which Pearson developed as a subcontractor for Apple. The LA Board of Education is going so far as to consider potential legal action against the two companies, per the Los Angeles Times. Quote, to press its case, the Board of Education on Tuesday its attorneys in a closed-door meeting to explore possible litigation. Apple and Pearson, the company that developed the curriculum, as a subcontractor to Apple, unquote. The LA iPad deal is controversial for other reasons, too, which we have brought you in previous reports here on the Evan Miller Report. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is currently examining whether Apple and Pearson got favorable treatment when they were awarded the contract, and I bet you they did. So we will keep an eye on this story and bring you the latest on it. Next up from the Hollywood Reporter, the author of the 2006 novel has accused the Avengers director and Cabin director Drew Goddard of stealing his idea. Oh boy. With just weeks until his box office victory lap, Avengers Age of Ultron, Joss Whedon is now facing a lawsuit accusing him of stealing the idea for the 2012 meta-horror movie The Cabin in the Woods. Whedon produced and co-wrote the script for Cabin with director Drew Goddard, a writer on Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and a fanboy favorite in his own right, with credits that include Netflix's Daredevil, and reportedly may soon include Sony's upcoming Spider-Man projects. And another reboot of Spider-Man.
Give it a rest.
Yes, any rate, Whedon and Goddard are named as defendants along with Lionsgate and Whedon's Mutant Enemy production company in the complaint filed Monday in California federal court. In the complaint, Peter Gallagher, no, not that other Peter Gallagher, claims Whedon and Goddard took the idea for The Cabin in the Woods from his Ossex novel, The Little White Trip, A Night in the Pines. He's suing for copyright and wants $10 million.
You were going to say The Little White Witch, weren't you?
Actually, it didn't come to mind until you put it in there, but at any rate. Yeah, he's suing for $10 million in damages. And finally, before I close out Lawsuits Across America, advocates for California's sex workers are seeking to legalize the world's oldest profession. This according to ABC News. Yes, I know. So if it comes from ABC News, yeah, a lot of tears are going to be flowing into that river. A federal lawsuit filed March 4th seeks to strike down the California law criminalizing it as an unconstitutional violation of equal protection and free speech rights. The lawsuit alleges that California's criminalizing lawsuit alleges that criminalizing of prostitution deprives sex workers or their right to participate in a private consensual activity. Yeah. The lawsuit was filed by the San Fran-based advocacy group Erotic Service Providers Legal. There's the name for you. That should be the clue as to how bad this is.
Let's keep this G-rated, Core. We got kids listening.
Yes. Parents, you can explain that to the kids later, and I hope you spend a bit of time on that. Anyway, that's the name of it. The E-Word Service Education and Research Project, along with 3 women who say they want to work legally as prostitutes in California. A disabled man who says he wants to legally pay for sex is also a plaintiff. D. Jill Spurlane, the lawyer representing the plaintiffs, said legalizing it will also make sex workers safer. California formally outlawed prostitution in 1961. The California Attorney General's office didn't return a call for comment. The group says it raised $30,000 last year to hire an attorney to file the lawsuit. It's seeking an additional $30,000 to pay for the continued litigation. Imagine that, $60,000 for sex. Imagine that. These days, men they'll beg for it, they'll kill for it, and at the end of the day, they will lay down their lives and their hard-earned money for it. To borrow a quote from Steve Harvey.
Oh my goodness.
And on that disgusting note, I will declare today's lawsuits across America case dismissed.
Thank the heavens for that. Oh my.
Yeah, I know, right? That was one of the worst I've ever seen.
Ugh. Corey Evan with tonight's lawsuits across America. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a breaking story. No, ladies and gentlemen, the world isn't ending. No, ladies and gentlemen, we haven't had another incident at the U.S. Capitol, but we do have a new Star Wars trailer out. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Entertainment Report, and I don't often start the Entertainment Report out, but ladies and gentlemen, who likes to hear the audio of the first new Star Wars trailer? Here it is now, here on the Evan Miller Report, exclusively.
Sister has it. You have that power too.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure the visual is better than the audio, but we thought we'd bring it to you here on the Evan Miller Report tonight. And, ladies and gentlemen, to be included in that movie, other scenes reveal battles between Han Solo's iconic aircraft, the Millennium Falcon, X-Wings, and Imperial TIE Fighters. We also get a clear glimpse at the film's yet unnamed villain as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll post that full trailer up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report. And Corey Evan got so excited about that trailer, he decided to disappear on me when that trailer was airing and go watch it himself.
Yes, and actually I'm kind of looking forward to this new episode. It's the first one in a while, so this ought to be good.
Well, especially considering that we're going to be having Harrison Ford coming back as Han Solo. I am really, really looking forward to that.
Yes, I figured you would. In other entertainment news, Lady Antebellum's Hillary Scott got quite a scare this morning when the tour bus she was traveling in en route to the ACM Awards in Arlington, Texas, caught fire while driving down the highway, according to People magazine. Luckily, nobody was injured. The singer shared a photo of the charred bus on social media, along with this message. Quote, "Hey guys, we had a crazy morning on our way to Dallas today. Our bus tire caught on fire and we had to evacuate very quickly. Everyone is safe and sound. It was me, my husband, our tour manager, and driver. Thanking God for our safety and the safety of all of those who helped put this fire out and keep us safe. Love you all, Hillary. Lady Antebellum is up for Vocal Group of the Year and will perform at the 50th Annual ACM Awards, airing live from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas on Sunday at 8 Eastern on CBS. And where's Ben? Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice has been one of the most highly anticipated superhero movies, aside from the Star Wars movies, ever since it was announced that Ben Affleck would be playing the Caped Crusader. That's going to be interesting. Yes, he better have Affleck after this. Though the flick doesn't come out until March 2016, the first teaser was released by director Zack Snyder on Wednesday. And the flick will also star Amy Adams as Lois Lane. That's going to be interesting. She's actually pretty good. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, Jeremy Irons as Alfred Pennyworth, and Diane Lane as Martha Kent. So we've got some pretty good movies coming out. Hopefully this edition of Batman vs. Superman will actually turn out pretty good, because there's actually a pretty heated debate between my fiancée and her father about who's better, Batman or Superman. So hopefully this will give them a good chance to duke it out.
And apparently
but this weekend,
Red Robin there in the background apparently agrees with you.
Yes. But this weekend, you're stuck with Paul Blart Mall Cop 2, which the critics are not a fan of. At least none of them that they've... Yeah. True Story with Jonah Hill and James Franco, only a little bit better. And Unfriended seems to be the one that everyone wants to watch, at least among the critics. Currently at the box office, Furious 7 brought in $59.6 million this week. Home with Jim Parsons brought in $18.5 million more, and The Longest Ride rode in with $13 million more this week. That's what I've got in entertainment today. Hope to entertain you again tomorrow. Till then, I'm Corey Evans, sending it back to Jason Miller.
Thank you very much, Corey. Corey Evans with the Entertainment Report. And ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for joining us tonight here on the Evan Miller Report. For Corey Evans and all of us here at SHR Media, we wish you a great night. Coming up next here on is the National Weather Forecast tonight with the BBC Met Office's Nick Miller. After that, the Exceptional Conservative Show. For all of us here, have a great night.
Gulf of Alaska coastal regions are going to see a succession of weather systems in the next few days. We've had one, there's another poised to come in, and that's going to just bring frequent rain in with a risk of flooding. A lot of weather activity still continuing across southern Gulf states of the USA during Friday, but the severe weather stretching all the way back to Colorado. This zone here could see isolated tornadoes elsewhere, torrential downpours, risk of flash flooding, large hail can't be ruled out as well, and there'll be gusty winds. Let's take a look at things in greater detail then. For Friday, a bit of a break in Vancouver. We'll get to see some sunshine, fine day across the Pacific Northwest of the USA, and that dry weather continues all the way down through California, where of course we still need rain. We look further east, and we are going to see some showers around towards the northeast, and we're going to see further thundery downpours into Florida and then back across southern Gulf states here as well. Looking very soggy at the moment after the downpours we've already had. Now, as we look at the forecast, looking further ahead, we'll take more of these storms through Atlanta by the time we get to Sunday with a top temperature of 21 Celsius, that's 70 in Fahrenheit. In Vancouver, it's turning a bit milder. The warmth is on in Seattle and Portland too.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.